Hello and welcome to the YouTube channel for craftworldeldar.com. I'm Brent, and in this short video, I'm going to be talking about the recent index update posted to the Warhammer community page. Now, this is an update to data cards. Many of the data cards, that is the unit profiles in the game, have been changed in some way, and theoretically, this represents many alterations to the 10th edition rules because many data sheets have changed. But in practice, relatively few meaningful rules have been changed because most of the stuff in this document, although many datasheets have been affected, most of these quote unquote changes really are just clarifying rules that we probably already understood or eliminating mistakes. That said, there are a few meaningful changes to Aeldari units. I will talk about those. I'm only talking about Aeldari units. This is an Aeldari channel. And to be honest, if you've already watched coverage of this or listened to coverage of this created by some other content producer, you are caught up. I don't have any brilliant analysis to offer. I'll say maybe one or two things about how we might think about Wraithguard a little differently. But for the most part, I'm just covering the changes because I know that many of you rely on me to be a one-stop shop for all stuff Space Elf, and maybe you're not consuming other content, and it can be a little bit difficult to unpack these documents if you're not already intimately familiar with the data sheets, because they make these references to stuff on the sheet without showing you the original sheet. So I'll walk you through everything you need to know. But if you've already encountered this content elsewhere, I probably don't have anything new to say, and I certainly don't want to waste your time. So here we go. I'm going to start with the most significant, important changes, and then I will tell you I will summarize all the other stuff that's relatively minor. So, big important change number one. We'll start with the most important one. Here's the most important one. The Spirit Seer Wraithguard combo has been significantly nerfed. So, both data cards have changed. The Spirit Seer now no longer resurrects a slain Wraith model in every command phase, thus 2 per battle round, and now only resurrects 1 on your turn in your command phase. Many players suspected that this was a mistake from the beginning, that GW never intended for the Spirit Seer to be bringing 2 of these models back per turn, simply on the grounds that no other unit in the game that does this kind of thing does this. Necrons can bring back multiple models, but I don't think they do it in your opponent's command phase. So that was a bit weird. I'm still not sure on whether or not it was intentional. I actually have a theory that maybe like the rules writers intended it, but then the editors maybe didn't catch it or something like that. I don't know. The rules writers were generally quite generous with Aeldari this time around, so I wouldn't put it past them, but it's gone. Now it's 1 Wraith model in your command phase only, so your ability to resurrect your dead ghost soldiers has been cut in half. It is now reasonable instead of insane. The change to Wraithguard themselves is a significant one. So they have that war construct ability that allows them to shoot when they are attacked. They can still do this. However, their weapons no longer get the pistol keyword when they do. So in previous videos, I talked about how you could pull this crazy trick with your Wraithguard where you shoot something with their Wraith cannons, which are super hard hitting, charge it, club it in melee, get hit back, and then shoot it again. And this was clearly intended. This is not a mistake. They specifically gave the pistol keyword. This is the only reason that you would want the pistol keyword, is to be able to shoot in melee. So the rules writers definitely intended for it to work this way, but it has turned out to be a bit too good. Wraiths can, by doing this, double their shooting output in a combat round, and that turns out to be just a bit too good. They still can, of course, shoot when shot. So if some opponent targets them, they can then shoot as if it were your shooting phase. And here's also just an important note. They do not have to shoot the unit that targeted them. So as long as some enemy unit that makes a decent target for Wraithguard is within 18 inches or within range of them, I guess if they have the D-scythe, they can do this. You do not have to target the unit that targeted you. That's still a great ability. They're still good. It's just they're no longer fabulous. If you look at the tournament results from the last few weeks since Eldar got nerfed, the Fate Dice nerf. Craft World, well, Aeldari are still doing very, very well, and a lot of the lists that are doing well, making it onto GT podiums, have included a 10 ghost unit of Wraithguard with the cannons led by a Spirit Seer, and I suspect we're going to see less of that now. That's a pretty serious point investment, and so now that we're resurrecting one model instead of two, and we're not doubling our shooting output, but they're the same point cost as before, they're merely a very solid unit for the points that is an absolutely reasonable include in competitive play, but it no longer rises to the level of just being this absolutely insane deal that is only not making it into every competitive list, because there are other really good, fairly insane deals out there. Still solid, still usable, but I suspect we're not going to see that combo on podiums nearly so much going forward. I think that this is a reasonable change. I do feel bad for people that did not own 10 Wraithguard and just bought 10 of them and maybe just finished assembling them, or they haven't even arrived in the mail yet, but you've already paid for them. I totally get it. I would be mad too. I understand. I will also say, if you are a committed Eldar player or a committed player in any army in the game, the only way to play competitively really is to have a big collection, because what's good is going to change multiple times over the course of an edition. You can't just buy one list and expect you're going to take it to tournaments and do really well. And Wraiths are cool. They're cool aesthetically. They're fun on the table, and they're certainly not bad now. So it's not like your Wraiths are useless now, but it is always disappointing for people who pivot into something that's really good, buy the model, finish painting it, and that's exactly when it stops being incredibly competitive, because now there's some rule balance change. So that's by far the biggest one. Here are some other notable changes. Corsairs now can be Ynnari. Previously, if you were running a Ynnari list, so if you make your Vrain your Warlord, your army counts as a Ynnari army, and you lose access to some units and you gain access to others. That is, you gain access to like 2/3 of the Drukhari stuff, but you lose various Craft Worlds options, including the Phoenix Lords, the Avatar of Cain, whatever. Corsairs had been something that you lost access to, and now they're not. It made no sense for you to lose access to Corsairs, because in all of the Ynnari lore, Yvraine is running around with Corsairs. She literally lives on a Corsair ship. So it just made no sense. It's also true that it's not like Corsairs are so good that it created some kind of like, oh no, Ynnari Corsairs, that's just so overpowered. If anything, certainly the more elite Corsair builds are definitely overcosted for their fragility and competitive play. And so I really think they were just trying to take the same number of units off the table, or something vaguely comparable when you chose Ynnari to what you're getting. So it seemed balanced. But it's not like everybody was running Ynnari lists and burning everything up before. It was a totally unnecessary limitation, and it's gone now, which absolutely makes sense from a lore perspective. And Corsairs are super cool looking models, so great. Okay, here's another modestly significant change. Both versions of the Autarch Wayleaper, that either has the wings of the jump pack that has lone operative and runs all over the board doing cool stuff, and also just the regular Foot-Tarch, both of them can now have all of the different weapons loadouts. This was weirdly and inexplicably limited before, where like I think the regular Autarch maybe just couldn't have a Banshee mask, and neither one of them had access to a fusion pistol, but that's in one of the old kits, and it seemed arbitrary. So now both Autarchs can have all of the weapons. That makes sense. The more significant change is that the Reaper launcher, the Star Swarm profile, now like the Reaper launcher, regular Reaper launcher profile, has a damage characteristic of 1 instead of 2. I think we all knew that was a mistake. It was never supposed to say 2 for the anti-infantry options. So they fixed it, which good. It's not like we were seeing a bunch of those on Foot-Tarchs anyway. Some people are putting them, I guess, now on Wayleapers, which I like the fusion gun, but I think that there's a great argument for the missile launcher, because it can be doing its lone operative thing on an objective way out of your opponent's range and still be participating in the battle. And so that's cool too. Okay, and the last change that I think is of any meaningful consequence, they fixed the obvious error on the Wave Serpent, whereby the Star Cannon had twin-linked, but still had double the shots. So every twin-linked weapon in this edition has the same number of shots as the not twin-linked version of the weapon, but it can reroll wound rolls. But for some reason, the reason being that they made a mistake, the Star Cannon, twin-linked Star Cannon on the Wave Serpent still had 4 shots. So it's down to 2. So it's what it was always supposed to be. We knew it was a mistake. We knew it was a misprint. They fixed it. But technically in tournaments rules as written, maybe there was somebody out there using Star Cannons with 4 shots. I think everybody was putting Bright Lances on their Wave Serpents anyway, so it doesn't seem terribly important. All of the other... Oh, one other thing about that. So if you go to the GW website where you can download for free all of the index cards for any faction, the index cards have been updated to reflect the changes in this new document, except for the Wave Serpent. The actual data card in the downloadable stuff for the Wave Serpent still says it has 4 attacks. So just in case, in the unlikely event that there is somebody who works at GW who listens to my content, hey, just so you know, you forgot to change the Wave Serpent card. The other ones seem to be fixed. And if you bought the index cards and you're kind of mad about this, these changes, like, don't be. I did too. It's really easy to get out your index card for the Wraithguard and take a Sharpie and just cross out the bit about them getting pistol 1. And on the Spirit Seer card, you just X out the command phase and write your command phase. You change the damage characteristic on the Star Swarm on the Autarch profile from 2 to 1, and then you do the same. On the Wave Serpent, you do 4 attacks to 2 attacks on the Twin Linked. It takes under a minute to do this. It doesn't make the cards look bad or stupid. And honestly, I don't think you need to change any of the other cards. But I will briefly run you through what the other changes are. The Solitaire Blitz ability now specifically says that it doesn't add 3 attacks to the attack characteristic, but 3 attacks to the attack characteristics of the weapons on the card. Everybody was doing it that way anyway. There was probably some tournament organizer out there who's being a real jerk and saying, like, no, the Solitaire gets no extra attacks for Blitz, which you can't do that anymore. Small town game store tyrant in Iowa, the Solitaire gets 3 attacks. We knew that. The Dire Avenger Exarch, if it has the 2 shuriken catapults, if you read the card carefully, didn't technically have any melee attacks, didn't technically have a melee weapon. Obviously it does. It can make melee attacks like any other Dire Avenger in melee with the butts of, even if you don't give it the Dire Sword, with the butt of its shuriken catapult. And that, honestly, a lot of the changes to the index cards are in fact exactly that change. They just forgot to mention. So they on various index cards, they gave units a close combat profile, but in the bit where it says every model is equipped with, they forgot to say a close combat weapon. So most of us didn't even notice this. Like, it's not like if your Dire Avengers got charged, you were like, well, the XR clearly doesn't add any attacks, because if you flip it over, you'll notice that it says that. No, like, clearly, probably you weren't playing it this way anyway, but technically now your Dire Avengers have close combat weapon. Your Dire Avenger Exarch has a close combat weapon, even if he has 2 shuriken catapults or she has 2 shuriken catapults. This is also true of Dark Reapers, which previously did not say that they had close combat weapons. This is also true of Corsairs if they switch to rifles. Theoretically, if you had given Corsairs shuriken rifles before, it said that you trade your sword and your pistol for a splinter rifle, but then it didn't specifically say a splinter rifle and a close combat weapon. So technically, even though there's a profile for it on the card, your Corsairs with shuriken rifles, they're not Drakari, couldn't fight in melee, which was, clearly they could. I don't imagine any of you were playing it that way. Storm Guardians got a little bit of a bump. We noticed when the data cards came out that in order to have the special weapons, the flamer or the fusion gun, you had to swap both your pistol and your sword, so they had no melee profile at all. And now you still get the sword, you still get the Storm Guardian weapon, so they still fight in melee just as well if they have a fusion gun or something, which that's cool. It's not like Storm Guardians are dealing a lot of melee damage. You could go through the trouble of bothering to get a sword from somewhere and like put it on the waist or the back of the model, but you don't need to. You could just say that your Storm Guardians are clubbing the enemy with your fusion gun, the fusion gun that they're carrying, and somehow they do just as much damage as the elf next to them with a beautiful Aeldari blade. The striking Scorpion Exarch, if it takes the claw, I don't think people are running a lot of Scorpions, and if they are, they're not running it with the claw, but now it replaces the Shuriken pistol. That was not clear before. Phantasm has been changed. It no longer works on aircraft. Ooh, because anyone was using aircraft anyway. That was sarcasm. Nobody was using aircraft. No Aeldari player. Okay, and I think that about does it, with the exception of I forgot to mention that the Wave Serpent shield discharge ability, now it previously just said once per battle you can select an enemy unit within 12 inches invisible to this model, roll a d6 on a 2+, the enemy suffers d3 mortal wounds and must take a battle shock test. Previously you could have done that at any time, and now you do it in your shooting phase. This is worse, and it is specifically worse because you can't do it in your opponent's command phase and make them fail a battle shock test after all of their units have rallied. So that's a little bit of a bummer, but there weren't a whole bunch of Wave Serpents on the table anyway, and so I don't think it's a terribly significant change. And I probably should have mentioned that the close combat profile on the Corsairs has gone to, there's actually a profile for it. It's, even if they don't have the specified melee weapon, it's still 3 attacks per model. So that's it. If you haven't looked at that document, or you looked at it and you didn't unpack it carefully, that's what you need to know. Big takeaways. Again, Spirit Seer now only resurrects 1 Wraithguard. The Wraithguard ability can no longer be used in melee to shoot back. The Star Swarm profile on the Autarch missile launcher has gone from 2 attacks to 1 attack, and they fixed the mistake on the Wave Serpent with the twin-linked star cannons, and the Corsairs now can run in Ynnari lists. Those are the meaningful changes. I'll be back again soon with another video on objective play. If you've not subscribed to the channel, I hope that you will subscribe. If you have not liked the video, I hope that you will like the video. If you leave a comment, it helps my algorithm. It also makes me feel good. And if you have not become a Patreon, you might consider doing that. It's only $3 a month. We're creeping up towards 100 people in our Patreon community. The Discord is really active. It's a wonderful mix of casual players, more serious competitive players, and people who are just pretty cool and fun to talk to. So that's it. Back again soon. Thanks so much. Take care, and best of luck with your pointy ears.